Hello friends, so in the previous video we looked at stories with Rasa, and then we have got different paths where we ask for quotes and then the bot will ask us did it help or not. Depending on what we answer, the chatbot will respond with different things. Now what if we want to collect multiple different information along our conversation that could be used later, or we want to use that information to request for external data, etc. What can we do? So Rasa has got this form where there are some information we want to collect, and throughout the conversation, we'll fill in those information slots. Now, first thing we want to think about is probably what sort of questions we want to ask the end users and what sort of information we want to collect. So for example, in the domain.yml file here, I've listed out the sort of daily questions that I can ask myself for self-reflection. So for example, how am I feeling today? Did I stick with my plans? Am I focused? Was I thinking strategically? What are the improvement in self-reflections, etc. So here you can see all the different slots that I would like to collect answers for. So the slots are defined in the same domain.yml file, and I've listed out all the slots I want to include here. So feeling stuck to plan, focus on tasks, etc. Next, we want to think about the story flow. For example, when we first greet our users, when our users first greet us, we ask them if they want to do the daily reflection form. And if they say yes, then we will have an action of the daily reflection form. And if no, then we just say goodbye. And if they're in the middle of the form and then they ask something else, and then we want to ask them if they want to continue or not. So next, in terms of, if we go back to the domain.yml file, in terms of slots, what sort of entities do we want to collect from these questions? And feelings, it could be something, for example, motivated, I'm feeling tired, etc. These are feelings entities. And if I stuck to plans, focus on tasks, these are probably Boolean, so it'll be affirm or deny, which we can use in the intents as shown here. And then later on, we can map it to a value of true or false. So to provide examples of the entities, we go to the nlu.yaml file, and then we provide some examples of our entities. For example, fantastic is a entity of feeling pumped, feeling stressed, overwhelmed, etc. And then I've also defined some improvements which is related to the entity improvements. Once we've created all these examples, we go back to the domain.yaml file and specify our form. So in the form, the different slots can take, for example, it could take entity, it could take from an intent and then map to value true, or it could be just a simple text where the users can enter any text, and then we can later on collect whatever text they've inputted. Next, we want to go to the rules.yml file and then to say when the form is going to be activated, and when the form is being deactivated, what do we want to do? So in this case, we want to perform the action submit results and not the slot values. And the actions are also defined in the domain.yaml file, as you can see here. So after we've collected all the information and then asked Rasa to do the action submits results, how do we submit the actions? So this is all defined in the Actions.py file. So as you can see, this action submit result here, that's the name, which is corresponding to the action submits result here in the domain.yaml file. Here we're getting the slot values, the feeling, stuck to plan, etc, and then create some sort of logs. And then the logs at the moment is doing nothing other than printing out the key and values. Now, obviously, you can do a lot more with all these results. You can send it to, for example, Google Sheets and to track your daily reflections, or to send it somewhere else where it can be a third-party solutions. Now let's see our chatbot in action. So as before, we started with Rasa init, and then we do the Rasa train after we've defined all these entities, domain, actions, etc. So after we've trained our models, we need to run the action server as well as run the Rasa shell. So this command is just a simple trick where we can say to the bash run the action server, and regardless of the output, we run the Rasa shell as well. So in the case where in the Google Colab we don't have multiple terminals, this is how we can do this. Now, as you can see, we've got the action server loaded, and we've also got Rasa shell running. So if we start typing, interacting with our chatbot, hi, is self-reflection today now? Yes. How are we feeling today? I am feeling fantastic today. And did I stick to the plans today? Yes. I completely focused today. Not really, no. And were you strategic? I say yes. And what can be done better? What can we improve? I could have been more focused today. And I'll say summarize your self-reflection in one sentence. And let's just say I am feeling grateful. So as you can see, the bot has collected all our responses and has identified some of the entities. For example, fantastic as the feeling entity, and then yes or no, it was mapped to true and false. And here it was just a text field where I just inputted I'm feeling grateful. So just a quick recap. We first started off with asking what sort of questions we want to ask our users, and then what sort of information we want to collect from them. So the slots, which we've defined up here. Then we want to provide some sort of sample stories of how the conversation will flow and define samples of the entities. Afterwards, go back to the domain.yml file and then define the form and then the entities or the intent of what sort of values we expect to get from the users, defining the actions, what to do when we activate the form, deactivate, what sort of actions we take, as defined in the Actions.py file here. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier on is that don't forget also to uncomment the action endpoint such that we can run the action server. And in terms of what sort of resources that really helped me, and I think Rasa has put up a Udemy course, Rasa for Beginners here. Feel free to check it out. And the course is on the Rasa 1.10. So Rasa has also put out another video explaining the differences on the Rasa 2.0, specifically on this tutorial. So I'll also put a link in the description and also the associated GitHub link. And Rasa has put out the 2.0 migration examples in there as well. So I hope you find this useful.